Welcome back to Becoming a Published Author is Fun. And if that doesn't make any sense to you, check out episode 8 where I explain it. Today we are in episode 47 and we are looking at AI is the future. AI is here now. Why do I say that? Well, not too long ago, we were watching science fiction, such as Star Trek, the TV series and movies, and Star Wars. Star Wars actually talks about a time back when. Time long, long ago, I think it says. Either way, we're looking at science in that we do not know. And AI is one of those. In fact, in the Star Trek series, they had a character called Data, which was basically a robot that looked human and could act human. And at one point, he was I think he was trying out a emotion chip that didn't work out too well for him, if I remember correctly. But he was trying to become more human. And so that was all science fiction. Well, that was an example, Data was an example of AI, artificial intelligence. And we have come a long ways from those days. That was just pure science fiction. There was some facts back there that they had that made it possible to think that that was possible. In my opinion, the first example of modern day artificial intelligence was your search engines that like Google and Yahoo and the rest, and I believe that those are baby versions of it. But then things started getting bad. Young people got interested in it and started studying it in college, and we got into industry and they started working on it and developing artificial intelligence. They began talking about it as being the future. Well, that future has arrived, folks. We are now dealing with AI. I don't care what industry you are in, but I'm speaking specifically today to authors and publishers. We are in the literature industry. We face this problem now, not in the future. We're going to face it more and more as the future unravels, or is revealed, however you want to look at it. It's here now. And it brings with its arrival, it brings promise and it brings problems. And we need a plan. We need a plan to how to handle AI. Publishers are already facing that need. They're starting to ask questions. Do you use AI to assist you in writing? Do you use AI as the one who writes your story? And I think it's primarily information gathering, but as that information grows, they are going to start implementing policies. And we may not like those policies, or we might like them. It all depends on what they are. But I've told you about how AI can actually copy your style and write a book with your name attached to it, and you never wrote it, and you don't get a cent out of it. That's a problem, folks. And it's one that's in its infancy. At the greatest age right now, it's as a toddler. And I think that you could argue this is still in the baby steps, that it hasn't even reached the 2-year-old yet. Although it's getting there because it's starting to run. And so it's racing. It's last year, 2023, it seemed like the race from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. And it just unfolded in such a way that, it became a tremendous problem. And so that's why publishers suddenly had to start implementing just asking questions and gathering information and trying to get ahead of AI. Or if they don't get ahead of AI, then AI is going to destroy a lot of authors' careers. It's going to be a major problem, a major headache, and that the writing industry may never get over it. They have to have a plan, and they need it now. And so they're working on a long-term plan. But I think of myself, I think, wait a minute, I'm not a young guy. Can I wait until they come up with a long-term plan? The answer is simple. No, I cannot. I need something there now. Well, this is not new with me. This is something that we've had all along. And some of us, as authors, have probably employed this. We may not call it the same thing. I call it check and verify. You may call it something else. But we need to really take a deep dive into this little process. And when we're writing our books and we want to use AI, then we need to incorporate check and verify into that usage. So let me explain. First of all, by check, what I mean. So when you are creating a book, I talk about, and you know by now, if you followed me for any length of time, that I'm a believer in research. Research goes back and pulls out the history, pulls out all the facts you can find, and then presents it to you, or you present it to yourself. Well, AI does the same thing. It goes back and it pulls up history. Although, we now know the AI, if it doesn't find the history, it creates the history and pulls that up as though it was real history. That is why it's necessary to check. You need to go back and check and see, ask questions. You need to ask questions. And you need to give AI very specific instructions. I learned this a hard way, just simply trying to do a book cover. I gave it some instructions, and it came up with some wild ideas. Then I had to give it some more, and it came up with some more wild ideas. And it was becoming a long term, I think, and I didn't really have that kind of time, not for what I wanted to do. So I went back to another program that I use, which actually incorporates some AI in it. And I created a book cover. But going forward, the thing is, do you want to ask questions? You want to give instructions, both positive, what do I want, and negative, what I don't want, so that the AI understands the boundaries. The reason for this is AI is amoral. That's a big A in front of it. Amoral. It has no morals. It does not discern between right and wrong. It's only interested in one thing, providing an answer to your question. And it will use any means at its disposal to provide that answer. And so when you are giving it instructions, you are putting limitations on AI as to what it can use and what it can't. And so it has to be real. And so you have to come up with your own ideas about what is real. Give it criteria. If you have a criteria you're looking for, include it in your instructions. It's probably safer to give it too many instructions than not enough. You can always back off. But once it's got that been set loose with no instructions, so your only recourse is to erase it all and start all over. Because AI is super powerful and super fast. And so you've got to, right from the beginning, give it some instructions, some boundaries, if you will. So that's the check part. Check and verify. Well, what is verify? Well, first of all, when AI answers, it will quite often bring up references. Remember I said just a moment ago, if it doesn't find the facts, that it will create them? Same thing with references. If it doesn't find a reference for what it wants to say, or what it wants to put out as part of the response, it will create that document and then cite it. And it will look real. It will look very convincing. You need to ask questions and look at those references. And you go up and you find first you click on that reference or copy and paste it, either whatever you can. If it's raw, if it's not even existing, it'll come up and you'll probably get a 404. Sorry, that page does not exist. But if it's real, then now you're going to look at it and say, okay, the document is real. Does the result provide an answer to the question? And again, it may put something in there that really doesn't answer your question. So that may mean that you need to refine it a little bit. So that is something that's very, very important. Here is what I believe is an extremely important idea. And many people out there will say I'm totally wrong in this. And they are entitled to their opinion. We live in the day of high criticism. It started back hundreds of years ago and still going on today. Evolution is a result of that. The theory of evolution. They'll even deny it's a theory nowadays, but it's a theory. And that theory is based in part on higher criticism, which simply means that it's human reasoning. And they go on, they look at the facts as they can find them to support or disprove something. The problem with that is they put themselves up above the Bible, above anything else. And they're up here on the top and they say, we have the answer. Well, do they? There was a day, and I think that day is still going on, when archaeology claimed to be that resource. It's certainly considered one of those resources. Well, there was a group of people mentioned in the Bible called the Hittites. The Bible talked a lot about them and how they impacted Egypt and other nations around them. Archaeology said, no, they've never existed. The Bible is wrong. Somebody made that up. And today you have critics of the Bible saying, oh, that was made up. That came back hundreds of years later and they made it up. All that's a lie itself. But they project that and they teach that and they convince people that that's true. Well, for hundreds of years, archaeology argued there had never been a people called the Hittites until one day somebody discovered something that the word Hittites showed up. Wow. That changed everything. And from that point on, they began discovering other things. And now they know that the Hittites were not only existed, but they were a very powerful force that actually ruled Egypt for a while. And so now they know about a little bit about them, and they're still projecting ideas. They like to try to keep a hand's distance or arm's distance from the Bible because they don't believe the Bible. And so they say, okay, we are going to look at the Hittites more. Archaeology is still the answer. No, they're not. They made an error. That disqualifies them. The Bible has no errors in it. Now, there are those who say there are, but they don't. And even if they use the King James, which is, in my opinion, the only Bible for English-speaking people. The other Bibles are traced back to Alexandria, Egypt, where they got all sorts of mythologies, cultic ideas, all sorts of magic and stuff like that, and it filtered into their biblical accounts. Another city by the name of Ephesus was north of there, actually in the Holy Land, or actually I think it was a little bit more like in Syria or something like that. And there came what we call the Textus Receptus, the received text. And that has come all the way forwards with no changes other than English changes, how you write it, how you spell words and stuff like that, but no changes in the verses themselves, the wording, and so forth. And so the Bible, I believe, the King James Bible, should be your first resource. Now, this post is not a defense of the King James Version. I could spend a whole blog on that one, and other people have done a very adequate job of that. It doesn't really need our defense. People need to put some reliance in it because that is a source that we can rely upon, and we have a great deal of information there. Now, like I said, it has no errors on it. Some people will quote people in the past who have made prophecies. And there's one particular man, I can't think of his name right now, but he made a lot of prophecies they're still looking at today. And I think his percent is around the 70s or 80%. They rave about that. They rave about the accuracy. But on a biblical basis, he would be disqualified. 80% is not good enough. 90% is not good enough. 99% is not good enough. It's got to be 100%. You know what happened to a prophet if he wasn't 100% accurate? He got executed. And so it has to be 100%. You have to have a reliable first source. And that's what we need to do, is especially when dealing with AI, because they're going to be coming at you with all sorts of facts and figures that are not necessarily true. Don't forget that. AI is, as I said before, amoral. So don't rely on it. Use it as a tool. Use it as an assistant, but don't rely upon it. Use other resources as well as the Bible. Once you pass the Bible test, then you have other resources that are available. Now you can use archaeology. If you look at archaeology through the eyes or lens of the Bible, things become more apparent to you. I don't have the time to go into it deeply, but when I wrote my first series, actually a novel series, fiction series, it was about the flood and the world that came after the flood and the world that existed before the flood. But there was no secular history to back me up on, or to even show me what that was. But I noticed that there was, like, within the first 500 years after the flood, cities were growing up and developing, and that's way too fast in human history for that to happen. And so I began to ask questions, and I looked at it, and I could see that it was a reflection. A lot of knowledge had come over on the ark with Noah, and that knowledge pertained to the society he was coming from, and it helped get the new society started. And that opened up the whole series for me, as far as being able to go back and discuss what was happening, show different things that were happening in the world prior to the flood. Now, I was just writing fiction, but it was about a historical time period. And so I went to the one resource that I could count on, and that was the Bible. And when I saw that, and I read that, and I saw the time frame, how small it was, I realized that information came over on the ark. That opened up the whole treasure chest, if you will, of information for me. And so use that as your first lens, and then look at other resources. When you do that, it's going to open up a whole world of information for you, and understanding of that information. But whatever you do, check and verify. You have to do it. You know how to do it. You've been doing it for years now. You need to apply it to AI, and you need to apply it now. You have a great day, and I will see you in the next episode.